Hello, my friends on the interwebs. My name is Sean Wood, and welcome back to another episode of the Sean Wood All Good Podcast. In today's episode, we are going to talk about why you should start a podcast in 2020. So yeah, I think that you, the listener, should be here where I am, talking to your microphone with no one around you and my brother and his girlfriend in the room thinking that I'm a bit weird. But yes, you should be in this position. And why is that, Sean? Why should you take your time to make a podcast? Well, I will give you a few good reasons. Firstly, parkour as a niche currently has about 3 active podcasts. They would be probably the most active, the Modus podcast, Giles and Keelan, doing great work over there. I'm a huge fan. Listen to every episode. They're doing great things and we need more of that. That's a good reason. Then we have the Height Drop podcast by Brendan Douglas, one of the older podcasts, still active, a little less often than the Modus podcast, but he always has great content, good guests, really enjoy that. Then we have the Farang Hardcore Parkour podcast with Jason and Anan. Like most things Farangs, they do it when they feel like it. When they do it, it's great, but you don't know when you're going to get it next. Kind of like my ex-girlfriend. No, okay. I won't go there. So there's that. And then we kind of had Rafe Kelly as well. It's kind of more of a movement podcast and great content on there as well. Big fan of Rafe stuff, but it's not as much sort of parkour direct content. But outside of that, there's not really anyone else doing parkour content, parkour podcasts. So what does that mean? It means it's easy to stand out. New platform, new form of content, not much there, early adopter. It's your chance to stand out in front of the crowd, help create the tone of where parkour podcasts will go. Second thing, general rule of thumb that I like to use in my life is that I know that I'm hungry for more parkour content. So I currently listen regularly to the Modus podcast, the Brendan Douglas Height Drop podcast. And, I drive to work every day and I actually don't have enough parkour content to be consuming right now in audio form. And if I'm sitting here having this problem, there's likely to be 1,000, 2,000 other people, maybe 100,000 other people out there with the same problem. So us as the people that are listening can fill that space and be the creators that can create that space that needs to be filled. I guess my next reason why you should start a podcast is that all the big players, all the big platforms have just launched podcast platforms. I said platforms a lot there. So Spotify have just added podcasting as a big feature. They spent millions, hundreds of millions of dollars launching that platform. Apple has announced that they're actually splitting up iTunes. So podcasting will get its own platform. People are really starting to use YouTube a lot for podcasting. It's very likely they'll add some stuff to their platform soon as well. And when this happens, that generally they know something we don't. And so when these big platforms are spending all this money and investing all this money into podcasting, it's probably a time to jump on board. Backboning on that, if you go and do some research, Google Trends, for instance, podcasting is just trending upwards. The graph from 2016 has just been up like a mountain climb that I would not like to climb. It is the podcasting is growing. It hasn't slowed down. It's on an upward slope. if Bitcoin had kept trending up this way, we'd all be rich, but it didn't. It crashed. So podcasting is the new Bitcoin. That's what you can get out of that. And that's definitely not it. But it's got a 90-point rating on Google Trends right now, super high, and it hasn't been slowing down and doesn't look like it's going to anytime soon. Another thing, I released the first 4 episodes of my podcast, and I barely pushed them. I think I made 1 or 2 posts about that podcast, and it was just through Instagram and maybe 1 on Facebook. I kind of left it for a little bit, and I went off and did some other things. Came back, collectively, those first four podcasts, like 1,000 views. I don't know about you, but that's pretty impressive for me, for not really putting that out anywhere into the stratosphere of the internet. It sort of shows me that people want them, and I think those views mainly came in from the other 3 or 4 podcasts, related search, and people clicking over from there. So pretty cool. People are hungry for it. As I said before, you get to be the early adopter, so that's super cool. And it's also, I think this medium, this platform of podcasting is a great chance to gain trust and attention with your audience. So the last episode we talked about TikTok, and one of the things I didn't mention on that podcast about TikTok and what I don't like about it is that because of the type of content that's being made, you don't really get to grow a great connection with your audience. I like to think about the quality of the people that follow you. A lot of the time it's quality over content, quality over quantity. And like, you just got general rule of thumb. It's like, would those followers, buy something of $50 if you were to put it out, and like, if you were 50,000 TikTok followers and they don't really even know your face or who you are, I doubt a lot of those people are going to buy anything from you or be able to be sort of, would ever want to invest in you in any way. Where I feel like podcasting is a much better way to sort of gain attention and trust with your audience and grow a relationship more than anything. It's a discussion, right? I'm talking to you through this microphone, and you guys have the ability to reach out to me and continue that conversation, whether it be through any of the platforms. And it's long form. You will probably get to know me through this podcast. I'll be able to tell my stories. It's longer form, and I just really feel like there's growth and a relationship that's built through this that you don't get on some of the other platforms. And then lastly, I think the pros on the list of them is it's great culture building for the sport. We need more long-form conversations, especially in this, environment where we have FIG coming in and these difficult, hard conversations need to be had. And it just helps build the culture of the sport. That was one of the things that I was really liking about doing the guest feature podcast, is that I just get to talk about things that I've been thinking about and get them validated and have those conversations. And you guys get to listen to those conversations, and maybe you'll go off and have another conversation that continues in that. And that's how progress is made, is through conversation. And I feel like the more of this that we have, the more the likelihood through the algorithm and the way that, everything works, that more likely more people hear it. Maybe they'll like parkour and they'll jump onto parkour, and it'll grow the sport. So yeah, I guess that's my big list of why, or not so big list of why you should start a podcast in 2020. They're the pros. The cons, there's not many of them. All I can really think of is it's quite technical, can take some time to learn. I was lucky. I'm actually just using Adobe Premiere to edit my podcast. I do it in Audacity and then off into Premiere, add my little thing there, my intro, my outro, and I'm done. By the way, if the quality of this is not good, then please let me know. I have just been running with it because it seems to be working. I guess the other big con or negative at this point in time is there's no easy way to monetize podcasts at the moment, but that is going to change, and there is a lot of advertisers jumping in. There's a lot of brand deals being done with the bigger podcasters, and there is always your donation platforms and those types of things that can be set up. So yeah, there's just no easy defined way, and I guess that's what a lot of people have problems with podcasting at the moment. There's a lot of networks that are buying up podcasts and paying people to do them and trying to put them behind paywalls. I don't really think that's a good method for doing it. Yeah, but all you really need is that one or two big sponsors. Apparently, from the stuff I've been reading is China is actually huge for podcasting, and podcasting is massive there, and the industry is like 3 times bigger than the rest of the world there, and they've found ways to monetize. And I'm sure if they're working out how to do it, there's school teachers over there, and it's people in super niche down, topics that are making thousands of dollars a month on their podcasts, and it's only a matter of time that continues out to the West. But yeah, so that's all I can really think of why reasons maybe not to start. But I think the pros definitely outweigh the cons at this stage. Just as a little bonus for this episode, I wanted to just give you a couple of recommendations of podcasts to listen to. 2 podcasts that I'm getting a lot of value out at the moment. The first one is by Seth Godin, surname spelled Godin, and it's called Akimbo. So Seth is kind of a marketer. If there's been a big brand, whether Apple, Google, whatever, he's probably advised them at some stage. He's sort of like a pioneer thinker within the sort of online space, but it's very hard to explain. Even his podcast is not easy to explain. He's sort of just like thought pieces. He calls it going on a rift. Very super interesting topics. Just maybe take my word for it. If you're into growing as a person, growing in knowledge, growing as an online marketer, growing as an athlete, any way, just growth in general, he's probably going to help you out and you're going to enjoy his podcast. The second is a marketing podcast. It's called Marketing School by Neil Patel and Eric Su. Sort of great daily tips on marketing. I really love their content. I listen to it every day. If you are interested in starting your own podcast or sort of growing any of your sort of online content anyway, you're going to probably get some great tips from them. Or not, it's up to you. If I get enough feedback on this episode, I can do a follow-up episode on how to actually start a podcast. I can go technical, how I did it, what gear I'm using, some advice I have. Let me know if you'd like to hear that. And as always, follow me on, my Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. No, I don't actually have that. Whatever platform you can find me on. I do have a mailing list a small mailing list that I'm going to start growing, but it's not there yet. And remember, if you think this information is going to be useful for anyone you know, please share it with them or give this a rating. It will help me heaps. Thank you for listening. This is another episode of the Sean Wood All Good Podcast, and I will see you next time. Peace.